So, big media stories in play, and the colossal lawsuit against Fox News and Newsmax is the subject of this evening's Talking Points memo. So let me just run down this whole thing to put it in perspective, which none of the media does because they hate Fox News and by extension Newsmax, which are primarily now conservative news agencies. On November 7, 2020, Donald Trump lost the presidency by 7 million popular votes out of 158 million cast. Very close, okay? In fact, so close that in the swing states of Georgia, Arizona, and Wisconsin, those three states, Trump lost by just 44,000 votes. Okay, less than 15,000 in each state. If he had won those votes, it would have been a tie in the Electoral College. Okay, if he had carried Georgia, Arizona, and Wisconsin, it would have been a tie. And there were other states like Michigan and Pennsylvania which were dubious to say the least. So immediately, charges of fraud in the election emerged. Y'all remember that? It was a tremendously intense story. Now, as a journalist, I listened to those charges as any responsible journalist would. Okay? I mean, if you're going to, and the president of the United States at the time, Donald Trump, was heading this fraud in the election. So the Trump people put out spokespersons like Sidney Powell, Rudy Giuliani, a number of others to whip up, all right, anger about the election. And they wanted it overturned. It was, if you remember back then, it was crazy. It was absolutely insane. Now, I covered this story fairly. And I watched as Justice Alito, who has oversight for this Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, signaled to the Trump administration he would consider evidence of fraud in Pennsylvania. That was a key for me as a journalist. I'm watching Alito. But the Trump administration had to present the evidence to him. They did not. They had an opportunity. They did not. I knew then that it was over because the only body that could overturn that election or put a stay on it was the Supreme Court. That was it. There's no other mechanism in this country. So I knew it was over in, I'd say, the middle to end of December. All right? But again, I'm giving the Trump people time to accumulate information about fraud, which is the fair thing to do. I also knew that much of my audience believed there was fraud because that's what a lot of people wanted to believe. Fox News and Newsmax were doing taking a little bit different approach. They were promoting the fact that there was fraud because that's what their audience wanted to hear. Now, Fox pulled back a little bit, but Newsmax did not. And so Fox began losing viewers to Newsmax. Okay. Then we come to January 4th, 2021, when the vote certification process, which would put Biden into office, gets underway. Here's what I said. Go. All right, so let's begin with Wednesday on the vote certification. The Electoral College puts Joe Biden into the presidency. Now, there are millions of Americans, literally, who believe the election was a fraud. Now, there is evidence that there were fraudulent things that took place. There's no question about that. All right? But the court system is not going to overturn a vote unless the evidence is incredible, vivid, beyond any doubt. And that has not been produced by the Trump administration. Now, after I said that we lost a lot of premium members who are the lifeblood of this independent news organization. We don't have a corporation here. It's my corporation. And after I said that, which was absolutely 100% true, people just canceled because they did not want to hear it. So we went forth, we still prosper, but I had to say what was true and put that above profits. Unfortunately, the corporate media does not do that. And so the charges of fraud by the Dominion voting machine outfit were broadcast without any backup. All right, you heard them all. You heard it and heard it and heard it. Now, I wouldn't put on Rudy Giuliani or Sidney Powell because I don't put on people to talk to you unless they have some credibility. When they called us, we said, we're happy to put you on, but you got to give us something. Can't just be speculation. We don't do speculation here. Okay. So then on January, March 26th, 2021, Dominion files a lawsuit against Fox News Channel, $1.6 billion, which is going to be heard next month. $1.6 billion. They also sue Sidney Powell, Rudy Giuliani, My Pillow guy Mike Lindell, OANN, and Newsmax. They sue them all for defamation. Okay? So they defamed the Dominion Voting Systems Corporation, hurt their business, and that's where the lawsuit is. So last week, all right, Dominion releases its case to the public. And you heard it, I'm sure. You guys are alert. You follow the news. You saw it. You heard it. I read the entire 179-page brief because I know all these people at Fox. All right? So I read it, but I also knew that none of the accusations by Dominion have been cross-examined. So while NBC, ABC, CBS, CNN, MSNBC, New York Times, Washington Post, all of them, 100%, took those allegations as truth, I didn't, because they have to be challenged. Okay? And that's what journalism is. You are skeptical, even if you don't like the person on the other end. And I'll get to Don Lemon in a moment. This is another example of that. Okay. So Fox News is embarrassed because all of these emails and everything goes out and all that, but there's no context to it. There isn't any context to it. What is true, and I know this to be fact, is that Fox was worried about Newsmax. And it wasn't going to get skeptical about the charges of fraud because they thought they would lose audience to Newsmax. That's true, 100% true. So rather than doing what I did, Fox continued along the lines of fraud, and they didn't put the fraud accusations in perspective. All they had to do was that. It wasn't even hard. If I had been there at Fox, that never would have happened. The whole thing never would have happened because it's not hard to do that. You can hear opinions if you provide context for them. You can't use an opinion as a fact. You can't say Dominion was a fraud. And it has been proven that Dominion wasn't a fraud. There weren't any machines throwing votes to Biden. It didn't happen. But there was fraud, and I'll get to that in a moment. Now, once again, this election was so close that the people who voted for Trump, most of them wanted the 44,000 votes that decided it to be scrutinized. And there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing at all. I wanted them to be scrutinized. And it turns out Arizona did it, Wisconsin did it, Georgia did it, and it came back no fraud. Still, people don't believe it. And you are entitled to your opinion. Trump doesn't believe it. Trump still believes he got hosed. Now, what was the real fraud? And this is really the kicker on this whole thing. Mark Zuckerberg, all right, the internet guy, the Facebook guy, pumped $400 million into the Center for Tech and Civic Life and another organization to electioneer. Where did that money go? 400 million? Georgia got 45, Pennsylvania 25, Michigan 17, Wisconsin 10, Arizona 5. For what? Where did that money go? That's a colossal amount of money. It went to people who, quote unquote, got out the vote. What does that mean? Did they pay for votes? That's the scandal. If anything, that's what the federal government should be investigating. Not this dopey, speculative Dominion machines from Venezuela did. I mean, it was insane. So, what happens now? The trial is in April. A very well-informed friend of mine thinks Fox is going to win that trial because Dominion won't be able to show malice. Okay? Opinion isn't malice unless it's a real tricky line here legally. I don't know. But in the court of public opinion, Fox News has already lost because the discretionary viewers are hearing all this. These are the people that might go in, might not. Now, the Fox News viewers, they're going to stay because they got nowhere else to go. They got nowhere else to go. All right? And they'll stay because a lot of them don't even mind that the fraudulent charges didn't pan out. They wanted to hear them. People believe what they want to believe. I don't think that this is going to affect Fox News ratings. Okay? I think they'll stay. But as far as journalistic credibility is concerned, if anybody even cares about that now, remember, as I wrote in the message of the day, the corporate media ran wild with Russian collusion and Trump was responsible for the violence on January 6th. They ran wild with that. Okay, they said it was a fact. Both cases turned out to be false. And that it's the same thing. News organizations not checking anything out, putting on stuff that turns out not to be true, and stating it as fact. How many times did you watch these pinheads? Oh, Trump is in bed with Putin and colluding, and Trump, he caused that riot at the Capitol. And I mean, how many times do you hear it? Thousands. And now these same people are going after FNC on the fraud. Staggering. It's an amazing story. It's going to change the whole media landscape in this country, which needs to be reformed desperately. And this is self-serving, but if you stay with me, I will never mislead you. All right? Never. I don't care about the money. I care about honor and honest reporting. And that's a memo.